If you were stuck in a disaster zone where the entire country is sinking into the ground, what would you do? When help is nowhere to be found, you'll have to do the most savage things to stay alive. I'm here to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the deadly earthquakes in Japan Sinks 2020. This whole city is about to be destroyed. Muto here is training to be a star athlete with a group of other wannabe hopefuls. While listening to their coach, they notice something wrong. The ground beneath them starts to shake, and that's when they realize that a small earthquake has just hit their city. But what they don't realize is that this is the beginning of something much more terrifying. The athletes are getting ready to go home when suddenly everyone receives a text on their phone telling them that another earthquake is coming, and this time it's going to be much worse. Okay, first things first, you get a warning about an earthquake on your phone, which means you better bunker down under some tables or find something strong to hide under. We're in a locker room, which doesn't give me any confidence that we're making it out of here in one piece. Lockers are big and heavy, and if they fall on top of us, we're dead. Realistically, we don't have much time, and we already felt a minor earthquake, which means I would leave this room immediately. Find some cover in the nearest available room or a desk big enough to hide my handsome self under. The most important thing in an earthquake is to keep your head covered, while losing your limbs isn't an ideal scenario. It's better than being dead. Either way, they shouldn't have headed back to their locker rooms as soon as they did. This will cost them everything. But you know what won't cost you everything? Raid Shadow Legends. This game will literally teach you how to avoid the worst of the worst with their global PvP and absolutely massive PvE boss battles and over 600 championships, I might add. In Teleri, we've got two kinds of elves. We have the normal run-of-the-mill high elves, they're kind of boring. You should go with the Siroth elves, the dark elves, they're so freaking cool. The dark elves 700 years ago got tempted by Siroth, who tempted them with art and philosophy, but the Arbiter begged them to stop, but they were too cool for her, resulting in a war that the High Elves won, but not without a never-ending back-and-forth power struggle lasting centuries. They're like a legion of evil assassins and warlocks, and my go-to stud is the Dark Elf Sniper. With her super cool Rain of Arrows skill, I can slow my enemies down while I take them out permanently. You need to use strategy in order to survive, and in this game, you can set the strategy to whatever level you like. They've got a jam-packed Halloween lineup coming up that I am so excited for you guys. It is so freaking cool. From major tournaments to special fragments that'll even get you some brand freaking new legendary champions. Click the link in the description or scan my QR code so you'll get the epic hero Chinoru along with 200k in silver, 1 XP boost, 1 energy refill, and 1 ancient shard, so you can summon an awesome champion as soon as you enter the game. The rewards will only be available for the next 30 days and only for new players. You can find me in-game under Anime Can Be, and if you're fast enough, maybe you can join my clan. Click the link in the description and I'll see you in-game. Thank you, Raid, for sponsoring this video. Now, back to the story. And that's when all hell breaks loose. The entire room begins to violently shake and everything starts to fall apart. Stunned by the earthquake, Muto wakes up to a deadly surprise. All of her fellow classmates have been brutally crushed, and she's the only one still alive. Broken skulls and intestines are everywhere. In shock, she runs away from the carnage that just ensued. But that's not all. The whole city is being completely destroyed by the massive earthquake. Buildings are falling, planes are crashing, and thousands upon thousands of people are already dead. Later on, Muto makes it out of the stadium and into the outskirts of the city. With no way to contact her friends or family, she's lost and has nowhere to go. Holy moly guacamole. Now I know that they were only a few feet away in their locker rooms when shit hit the fan a second time, but honestly, all these tragic accidents could have been avoided if they just applied existing knowledge about earthquakes to begin with. This is Japan after all, a country well prepared for the 2,000 plus earthquakes they have per year. Yeah, per year. If that is the case, then these people should have been highly educated for disaster scenarios. The Japanese school curriculum prepares citizens from birth to act in an orderly manner when these situations happen. Getting caught off guard by the initial rumblings of an earthquake can happen, but they should have waited before heading inside to the locker rooms, as they were already in one of the safest spots they could have been, an open-air stadium. By design, these stadiums would have allowed people to huddle to its center, away from any falling buildings or objects. Also, they should have waited longer before heading inside due to aftershocks, and these can occur up to an hour after the initial rumblings. It's not like they had anywhere better to be. Tokyo's buildings themselves are made to withstand 9.0 earthquakes and above, so it's unlikely in this instance that this stadium would have collapsed from the inside. And speaking of, those locker rooms from within that locker room should have been bolted down to begin with. This is common practice with many buildings and within people's homes in Japan to prevent this sort of thing from happening. The school definitely screwed up on this one. While it might seem cold-blooded, Muto here ditching her classmates was the right call. Let's be honest, she's no medically trained professional, and did you see that horror show? There were more dead teenagers than a slasher movie. The chance of more rubble falling from the ceiling is pretty dang high, so if it were me, I would sprint like Sonic on speed and hightail it right out of that locker room and find someone better equipped to take care of the situation. This ain't no Wonder Woman film, people. This is real life, sorta. On the off chance the internet was down, Muto could still have sent or received a recorded message to her family using Japan's NTT Disaster Message Board service, which is an analog messaging service in Japan where people can leave recorded messages for other people to check around the world. This could also give her the ability to check for any incoming messages left by her family members, assuming they're still alive. Suddenly, Muto notices fluorescent lights on top of a nearby hill right beneath the Shinto shrine. Realizing the lights are the same ones her dad likes, she rushes to the top and finally reunites with her dad. And that's when one of her fellow athletes shows up, along with her little injured brother Go. The mom joins in on the surprise, reuniting the whole family, with everything going back to normal. Suddenly, a mangled body drops from the tree and people start falling from the sky. And that's when they notice a helicopter instantly crash into the city center. However, this is only the beginning. Nearly everyone here is going to die, and no one is safe from the deadly earthquakes. If there was an Olympic competition for the scariest freaking country on earth right now, then Japan would have had the 59th medal to their collection. Cause this is insanity. We have enough problems dealing with earthquakes and tsunamis, and now we have to fend off falling corpses too? Talk about unsanitary. If they reach terminal velocity, then we're looking at 190 kilometers per hour solid objects crashing down on us. And I'm sorry, not even Mary Poppins' umbrella could save our asses. I would look to hide under the tree line right there, as this could have been our best defense to wait out the human rainstorm. Muto got really lucky realizing where her dad would be, but in reality, they should have already had designated meetup points for situations like this, outside their houses for after earthquakes, and outside their neighborhood for bigger earthquake disasters. And once again, 2,000 plus earthquakes a year, people. 2,000 plus. You'd think they'd have known better. The dad played it smart with that emergency kit he was rocking, and once again could have told you that having an emergency disaster kit with important provisions like food and first aid should have already been prepared in advance. At least one of them was thinking with their heads. Spending their first day on the hill, the group wakes up to bad news. The water has risen above sea level, and their chances of surviving are getting smaller by the day. Checking the internet, everyone begins to realize that the whole of Japan is being demolished. The whole island of Okinawa has sunk due to the rising sea levels, and the rest of Japan is soon to follow. With no other options, the father gathers everyone together, and they head through the town to find somewhere safer. Stuck at a crossroads, they have two options: go westwards towards Okinawa, or head east towards Ibaraki. One of the men tells the group that he has a distribution center full of food and resources needed for survival. However, Go's online friend from Estonia here texts him and says that going west is the safer option. So the family decides to listen to a kid from halfway across the world and head west, while the rest of the group decides to head east. Hold on, we need to pump the brakes a little bit because what? Our options are either head west in the direction of a place that doesn't even exist anymore, or head east where some guy has a distribution center full of food and shelter, and the family wants to go west. This is one of those instances where I feel the need to comment politely to our anime group's fictional intellect. Why are you all so stupid? This is the perfect example of human error at its finest. Aside from the dad's medkit, they have no provisions, no food, they barely have any water, and yet they're willing to trust the friend of a child who's not even in the same country as them right now? Idiot. We don't know what's going on, so we need to conserve what battery we have left, and Go's online social life can wait. Now, both moves on where to go are a gamble, so we should apply a little common sense here. The direction heading down to Okinawa has lower lying land than the east, or even central Japan, which has, on average, the highest points of elevation compared to the rest of Japan. If the land is sinking, which it is, it wouldn't make sense to head to lower lying land. Also, heading directly to the epicenter of the earthquake is where most of the damage will have taken place, as this is where the hypocenter or focus of the earthquake would have begun, which means stuff there, including buildings and resources, will be worse off than anywhere else. It also wouldn't be a bad idea to get familiarized with this group, group and figure out what skill sets they have. We're much better in a group than solo, and this is a chance to find out what everybody is good at. Are any of them hunters or nurses, doctors? This is the time to get friendly with everybody. And if all goes to hell, then I'd see if I could convince the second group to simply head west instead, as this way I could have the distribution center to myself. What can I say? I need it more. On the way there, we need to look for weaponry, as people tend to have a bad habit of doing terrible things when pushed to the edge, which may just happen very soon. Walking on the highway, Muto notices two old people in need. Worried for their safety, she decides to give them the family's last remaining water bottle. What a nice girl. Worried about being at sea level, the family heads for the mountains. Suddenly, they find a nearby creek full of fresh drinking water. This is a gold mine. This right here is money. Since Muto decided to give away all our water, which is priceless at the moment, this is the best thing we've seen in a while, which is why we can't afford to let this go to waste. If I was them, I would stay here pretty much as long as I could, or at least for a longer time than they did. We have replenishing water, and we could in theory forage for various nuts and berries and mountain crap that is native to Japan, such as butterbur, ostrich fern, flowering rapeseed, spring chrysanthemum, among other things. Earthquakes don't last forever, and if they are this far away from everything and low on supplies, I would seriously consider staying here for at least a night or two until they have more information to work with. Consider it a bonus that they are high up and away from tall structures. Later that day, the family heads past ruined towns and deserted areas, but luckily they managed to find and catch some pork grub for the night, not knowing that one of them is going to die the very next day. That morning, the group finds a sign that says there are Japanese yams in the nearby area. The father decides to go digging so they have dinner for the coming night. That's when Muto notices something very sinister. They've completely ignored one of the signs, and guess what it says? Unexploded mines could be buried here. Suddenly, the father makes one last dig, and a mine explodes right on the spot, killing him instantly and ridding the family of a father forever. The group decides to keep on heading west while they cope with the crazy shit that just happened. Luckily for them, a cheeky trucker comes by and lets them hitch a ride. But this ride isn't for free. Stopping at a gas station, the athlete here goes to wash her hands when suddenly the trucker comes by and tries to attack her. Mom comes from behind and manages to take him out using his truck. They make their way as far as possible before it runs out of gas. First off, this is why you always read the signs of a gated fence, idiots. Not reading clear danger warning signs and digging around places known for a lot of buried explosives. Frankly, Pops here was just asking for it, which is also kind of weird since he, out of all of them, seemed to be the most capable. And let's talk about that nutjob Thirsty Driver for a sec. I know you gotta pay the troll for a toll, but this is insanity. He is a case example of why I mentioned weaponry earlier, folks. And as much as we'd like to imagine that people in times of crisis will come together for the good of humanity, honestly, that is not a guarantee. People know that in cases like this, the daily rules of life don't always apply, and unfortunately, dealing with people who take advantage of this is more common than we think. The longer the world goes to hell, the more and more people will start to lose it, and not everybody has good intentions, I'm sorry to say. This is also why I mentioned traveling in groups, and why Athlete Girl got lucky thanks to Mom and her tag teaming our thirsty friend over here. Find a group if you can, and for God's sake, pack some form of self-defense, as Mother Nature won't always be your only enemy. The next day, the group keeps going on foot, seeing Mount Fuji in the distance. Muto and the athlete decide to take a breather and go for a pee down the hill, but this move is gonna cost them. Suddenly, the athlete collapses on the ground, and that's when a mysterious man from the sky warns Muto to not go any further, or else she'll die. It turns out that toxic gas is surrounding the area below the hill. The athlete went too far in, which caused her to suffocate and die on the spot. The mysterious man introduces himself as Kite, a YouTuber that flies around in a paramotor taking videos of the Japanese landscape. He offers to take one person with him on his paramotor, but everyone refuses. Because of this, he changes his mind and decides to join the group, leaving his paramotor behind like an idiot. This just made everything a lot more complicated. She fell harder than a sack of potatoes and without warning, unless she had an aneurysm or blood clot somewhere. This could only be from some outside force, like a type of gas. We don't know for sure, but I'm willing to bet what just caused this was high levels of methane gas, which is a gas you can't see or even smell, and one that is produced naturally from the decay of natural material, such as plants and animals, which is also found beneath the seabed. The disruption of the tectonic plates may mean that this gas could have seeped up and is now running wild in deadly high amounts. A little by itself is not the worst thing. I know, I've tried it. It's fun to smoke it. But too much can result in immediate loss of consciousness, and judging by how quickly our friend passed out, I'm certain it's methane gas. While technically we could have saved her, Muto made the right move backing away in time. If anything, Mom should have sacked up to save her. But let's be real, what could she have done? And if we're running low on food and water, then might not be the worst thing. She lived a good life, maybe. What I would be concerned with is watching for wind direction, because now if there's toxic gas around, then we need to try and position ourselves upwind rather than downwind if possible. Now I don't know for the life of me why they left behind that paramotor. That thing is so useful. Now unless we know anything about paramotoring, we couldn't have done much ourselves. And this thing ain't like riding no damn bike. If you fall off on a paramotor whilst in the air, you might die. But we could have used Kite as a means to get some aerial reconnaissance, at least while we still had some fuel to burn. It's not like he couldn't have carried the damn thing whilst not in use, as paramotors are known for their lightweight engines. Finding a supermarket, the group scours the place for any edible goods and useful items, when they suddenly get alerted by a toy robot. That's when arrows start firing off from every direction, giving them the Hawkeye special, and then the group splits up to find cover. In the midst of the chaos, Go almost gets fatally shot by an arrow. That's when an old-looking grandpa comes down from the upper floor to apologize and offers the group shelter while they wait out the stormy weather. The next day, the group gets ready to say their goodbyes. Suddenly, another earthquake hits, and both the group and Grandpa are forced to evacuate the area in his pickup truck. The Grandpa suggests they go to a place called Shan City, a shelter for those who have been affected by the disaster. Later that night, the group sets up camp and watches a national report from the Prime Minister. The group's plans are interrupted by a landslide, meaning they need to take another route. On the way, they pick up a foreign hitchhiker and finally make it to Shan City. The city welcomes them with open arms and offers the group food and shelter free of charge. Shan City bossman introduces the gang to their little town, but while the city might seem friendly, they're hiding a much darker secret that no one realizes. Meanwhile, Kite here sneaks out to go visit Grandpa, who's sleeping in his car. He slips him some morphine for his drug addiction, but Grandpa here is looking for something much more sinister, and everyone here is going to be shocked. The next day, the group checks out a ceremony by Mother, the leader of the city. She has the ability to talk to dead people and communicate to loved ones for their final words. Whether good or bad, all she needs is a keepsake from the person who died. However, she only performs this ritual 3 times a day. Kai tries to see just how legit Mother is by handing her glasses guy's glasses, claiming it was athlete girls who died from the methane gas. Touching the glasses, Mother here decides to throw him a bone and tell him that the object says, "It was me who said take a break, don't you worry about it." These are the same words athlete girl said a few days earlier, and now everyone is shocked to find out that Mother might be legit after all. Meanwhile, everyone has settled into the city, working various jobs and becoming members of the community. Muto here has been assigned as a caretaker for a disabled man that can't talk and can barely move. However, he shows something very strange by twitching his thumb and flickering his eyes right before a minor earthquake hits. While Muto might not realize it, this disabled man is going to be very important in the near future. Now, this cult may be friendly, but I don't trust anybody who dresses in full white. This place looks safe for now, and we've got food and a place to rest. After the day we've had, I wouldn't be complacent just yet. Delayed aftershocks can be greater than the initial main shock, with a 5% chance of this happening within a week of the initial rumblings. Earthquake sizes are largely related to the length of the fault line upon which the country sits. The longer the fault line, the larger the earthquake, and despite Japan being right on top of the Johnny Cash Ring of Fire, there is no known fault line long enough to generate a magnitude 10 earthquake. However, what we've seen proves something is strange, which is why I would still be on alert and trying to steal food and water from the kitchen during after hours. I know this white-loving cult seems safe, but we cannot let our guard down and be ready to move out at a moment's notice. Later that night, Muto goes to a dance festival held in the village center. It turns out that Kite and Glasses Guy are there as well, and they're killing it on the DJ booth. In the early hours of the morning, Grandpa here manages to break into the castle, kill 2 people, and steal Mother's kid and drive out. What a crazy old man. He thinks that Mother's kid is his own family because he is high as a kite and a tiny bit delusional. However, while attempting to escape the city, he crashes his truck directly on the gates, stopping him in his tracks. Locked up for his actions, Mother and her team analyze Grandpa's condition from the security camera. They believe his morphine withdrawals are responsible for his crazy antics, but they decide to leave his punishment for later. Muto here is looking after the disabled man. She notices that his constant twitches and blinking might be a sign that he's speaking in Morse code. Trying to communicate with the man, she uses a Morse code app on her phone to decipher what he's trying to say. Suddenly, she realizes that he's trying to say that a big earthquake is coming and that this area is is dangerous. After communicating with him, she realizes that the disabled man is Mr. Onodera, a famous geologist that predicted Japan would sink right before it happened. Hearing the news, Muto here rushes to tell Mom about what she's just heard. The two announce what's going to happen during the town festival later that night, but no one believes them. Suddenly, a fire erupts in the village and the ground starts to break open, and part of the town statue breaks off directly onto Go. But the chef covers Go from the giant debris, sacrificing himself in the process. Realizing the danger, Mother orders everyone to evacuate immediately. In the midst of the chaos, Kite here manages to sneak into Grandpa's prison cell. Suddenly, Buzzcut here comes down to warn them of what's just happened and tells them to leave the city now. However, Grandpa still wants to find the child and decides to head upstairs to find him. Buzzcut finds Mother wounded from a gunfight as members are going crazy trying to steal all their city gold. Mother then tells them that they must find her son before they leave. Finally, they reach the top of the castle, and for the first time in 10 years, the child speaks. Suddenly, a piece of rubble crashes down from the roof, killing him instantly. Grandpa and Kite arrive soon after and explains that his grandchild died in a landslide, and he wanted to believe that he was the same kid reincarnated, but has come to terms with the accident. Getting ready to leave, the rest of the group hop in the truck. However, the hitchhiker decides to stay back, telling them he belongs in Shan City and is willing to die. Meanwhile, Grandpa tells Kite to leave him behind in the castle, telling him that his days are numbered. The entire building collapses as the remaining survivors head elsewhere under a rain of gunfire and chaos. Okay, we don't have time to mess around right now. Didn't I say something was up? If we prepared for this earlier, we could have filled the truck with provisions like food and water and left better off than Muto and her group did. As of now, they have 5 people and no supplies whatsoever. From the fall of that statue, now you get why we couldn't have stayed in the town to begin with. One of the major problems during earthquakes is the liquefaction of the Earth's soil, which happens when the strength and stiffness of soil is reduced by the shaking of an earthquake, turning the ground into literal liquid. We've stumbled upon something much more important: the famous paralyzed geologist. He seems to know all about what's going on and is the only person we can rely on for accurate information. So in retrospect, it's not a bad trade-off, and thanks to Muto, we found a way to talk to him. I would use this time whilst driving away to find out everything we can know about what he knows. While he is extremely valuable, he is also a serious burden. This is why I'd get everyone except the mom driving the car to help find out everything that he knows. This way we can soon ditch him and not worry about it. The next day, the group heads for the nearest port to board the evacuating ships. There can only be 1,000 people per ship, and the whole country is racing to the ports. Time is running out. Reaching the port, the group is forced to go on foot. The line for the ship is absolutely massive, and thousands upon thousands of people are being rejected on the spot. Suddenly, Mr. Onodera tells the group that another earthquake is coming, but what they don't realize is that this earthquake is going to be the deadliest of them all. Lining up, Muto here notices one of her coaches waiting in line alongside her. Her coach mentions that the government has given special treatment to young people with promising abilities, meaning Muto here has a free ticket to board the ship. Saying goodbye, she hugs her mom and notices something strange around her waist, but ignores it for now. Since no one else was given a ticket, she boards the ship, but at the last minute realizes that the fanny pack her mom was carrying is actually part of a ventricular assist device, meaning she recently had heart surgery, causing Muto to leave the ship and rejoin her family. And that's when all hell breaks loose. Mount Fuji suddenly erupts, forcing the group back into the truck and destroying the terrain around them. The group manages to find another port, sending people to safety. However, this time, it turns out they're only letting people that are purely Japanese aboard their boat, meaning Muto and her happy family aren't allowed on board. Luckily for them, a nice old guy lets them board his boat. Setting sail, they notice a boat near them explode in the distance. Suddenly, shrapnel starts flying from every direction and pierces the boat. The nice old guy whips out a lifeboat, but only Muto, Go, and himself manage to make it inside, while the original boat gets absolutely destroyed, separating them from their mother. Later that night, the remaining survivors reach something strange in the water. It's a high-rise building, meaning the whole of Japan has officially sunk. Alright, this is not looking good. We've been sitting here for what seems like ages, and we can't tell how much time has passed because the sky is blocked by ash and smoke. This also means that it's nearly impossible for anyone flying overhead to see us. This group got extremely lucky, and likely wouldn't have made it in any other scenario. We can't use the sun's reflection through a piece of mirror or our phone screens to alert any nearby planes or ships, nor from the looks of things can we use any non-porous materials, like a raincoat, to catch and store drinkable rainwater based on what Muto told us. Volcanic ash has polluted the air, meaning any rainwater we collect will be unsafe to drink. However, desperate times call for desperate measures, so I would carefully consume small amounts of collected ash water, but only as a last resort, since we would be stranded here for a long time. Small amounts of ash taken through the water in limited quantities could present a low risk of toxicity. In this situation, we have little choice the longer we remain remain stranded. Muto and Go here missed out on a big opportunity to take a break on top of the sunken building. They could have used that place as a base whilst they waited out the rescue, as this would have also ensured that they don't get pushed further out into sea or be at the mercy of any rogue waves. And while this might sound counterproductive, instead of eating the chocolate bar, they should have fought off their hunger and used it as bait to catch fish. Yes, you heard me right. According to our friend, famous survivalist Michael Howarth, in his book, The Sea Survival Manual, fish are attracted to vessels and boats. This means if Muto had any jewelry on her, or if she used pieces of her phone, she could have used this as a makeshift lure to attract fish to her area, and she could have used her shoelaces or unraveled sock threads to serve as a fishing line. After a few days at sea, the group starts to get sick and weak. Suddenly during that night, Muto here wakes up and notices the old guy hunched over the tent wall with some nice seagulls viciously attacking him. Shooing them away, she looks over and notices something extremely horrifying. The man has been dead for hours, and the seagulls have peeled his skin from flesh. Suddenly, a shark comes out of nowhere and takes them away. Muto here zips the tent up, and the two wait until help arrives. After a few days out on sea, Mom and Glasses Guy here finally find the kids before they starve to death. Glasses Guy shows them coordinates left by Mr. Onodera, and Go here figures out that they must be located east of Hiroshima. Using a self-made compass, they figure out exactly where the closest shore is and head off. A stranded motorboat is then spotted out of the blue, but unlucky for them, it's stuck. Volunteering to fix the issue, Mom here dives in and tries to dislodge the rope. She manages to dislodge it successfully, but before she makes it to the surface, she drowns before anything can be done. Okay, Mom took one for the team here, and this is exactly why it's good to have people with different skill sets take turns risking their lives. This way, they can get the group out of sticky situations while we sit back and relax. And since the motor is placed in the back, I'm willing to take a guess that the boat had a V-drive inboard system rather than a direct drive system, which would have had the motor placed in the middle of the boat. This means that this is no easy feat, but someone could have tried reversing the boat just slightly, enough to loosen the tension on the rope, which would have made it easier to help Mom pull out the rope, giving her a few precious extra seconds to swim back to the surface. If this sounds too complicated, then it probably is. Mom here is a pro swimmer, but her glory days might be behind her. She should have been able to hold her breath for much longer and known that swimming rapidly upwards from deep water to the surface would cause her to pass out. She could have easily survived this situation by taking a moment to physically and mentally prepare her body to withstand the underwater pressure. By inhaling and exhaling slowly from deep within her diaphragm, we can rid the lungs of low-quality air, preparing for it to intake excess oxygen to be stored within the blood cells. Applying this technique for a few minutes would have ultimately helped her increase the amount of time she could have held her breath. While it might seem difficult, she only needed a few more seconds and she would have made it back to the boat safe and sound. Sometime later, a Japanese tank approaches them. Suddenly, Kite appears and invites them in, with Mr. Onodera also chilling with him as well. After a turbulent trip, they finally make it to land and find a nearby hot spring. After a well-deserved break, Kite here takes the group to the only place in Japan that can withstand a natural disaster. He knows of a place with secret archives that might hold the information to be able to save the entire country from any further damage. Exploring the island, they find a secret cave, but Kite here decides to go it alone with Onodera. Walking inside, they find a secret research room with the files he was looking for, as Kite manages to transfer the files into a hard drive. A roaring earthquake then trembles once again, hitting the island as the room begins to fill with water. Using an oxygen tank, he and Onodera manage to swim back to the surface, but they're not safe just yet. Strong waves begin to hit the island, and the hard drive gets swept away in the process. It's dangerous, but Glasses Guy here decides to go fetch the files. After an absolutely epic sprint, he grabs the data chip and nearly makes it back to safety. He tosses the data chip to the gang right before a massive wave slams right into him from the side, killing him. If we think about it for a second, he was our best bet since he had extensive experience in track and field. Muto here is also an athlete, but her leg is injured, and our only other options were a kid, a YouTuber, and a paraplegic, meaning we don't have many options. Judging from the rough stone coastline, that area looked pretty deadly. Even if this guy was a professional big wave surfer, you would have still been dragged into the stone coastline or the seabed itself, and there's little chance of surviving that. If I were Glasses Guy, instead of waiting for a wave to come and go and then run, I would have begun running as soon as the waves came crashing into me. This would have been a little riskier, but would have given us a whole extra second, meaning we have 11 seconds, not 10, to make it back, and an extra second was all that this guy needed if he timed it better. Checking the archives, they find a ray of hope. Onodera predicted exactly which areas would sink, as well as which areas would rise back up, meaning parts of Japan will return in coming years. Using a raft, they find a hot air balloon floating in the ocean. Kite manages to fill it using a spare oxygen tank, but the balloon only has room for one, so Kite here decides to fly away on his own, leaving the rest for dead. Jerk. Checking Mr. Onodera Mayura's body. They find a working phone with a working internet connection. It turns out that Kite used the hot air balloon to find an internet signal, alerting their location to rescue services. And that's when a helicopter comes and picks them up, all due to Kite. Now they're safe while looking over the ravaged Japanese landscape. Muto suddenly passes out due to the cut on her leg. She's taken to the hospital and operated on. A doctor informs her that due to the infection on her leg, she's developed suppurative osteomyelitis, a condition which will kill her, and the only way to stop the infection from killing her is to amputate her leg. 8 years later, Japan has risen once again. Muto here is competing at the 2028 Paralympics with a prosthetic leg. Remembering all that she's lost, she completes her dream of being a world-class athlete, marking her legacy in the history books. And if you want to join the history books along with Muto, then I suggest you comment down below. Let us know what you like, what you didn't like. Don't forget to give us a big thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and also don't forget to check out our playlist and our TikTok page.